like everybody else. Perhaps. The starting point for me too was the inability to wrap my head around the fact that how could a species poison its own food before eating it? How could a species do this to its own children? But it turned out to be nothing more than a scratch on the surface. The story had its roots running much deeper, its tentacles spreading much farther. More than anything, this again was a story like all our other stories we had just decided to bury. Supplanted by lies, deceit, and make-believe. The constituents of our very foundation. But still the strangeness of the intensity of the ignorance, immensity of the disconnect with the real, was hard to believe. Because in this case, particularly in this case, it was something happening right under our nose. Literally. Because in this case, this was something of critical importance, most essential to our very existence. Because in this case, this also was our very connection with the planet, the very condition for our survival. Food. Food, the thread that hangs us on to life. Our food, the act that can snap the thread of life. Ours as well as that of the planet. So what is it that makes us not see the evident? What is it that makes us intentionally blind to the so plainly obvious? I took that journey to explore these questions. But for the time being, for the purpose of this documentary, I'll be focusing on investigating the story of food. I propose that we undertake this investigation, this journey together. So this is how it will work. At some points, I'll request you to pause, ponder over, take your time, and play when ready. Please feel free to do so, even when not requested. May you be given the endurance to revisit this story. This is your story, after all. At this point, could you please help me identify some of the most crucial ecological issues we are facing today?
If you think a little deeply, you might be able to understand that all that we listed was coming, including population, okay, from the deforestation, but we can think more about it later for the time being. So, and where does the food come from? You can trace your source to the farmer, and further, where does the farmer grow? The farm, okay? The farmer is growing food on the farms. And what was there before there was a farm? There was a whole forest, okay? Not just trees, but there was a forest. So there's this forest standing out there. You need your food because you want to be alive, correct? And your food, particularly your food, comes from the farms. And there's a forest out there. So what do you have to do?
Out of about 2 million years of our existence as humans, just about 10,000 years ago, some of us started authoring a new story.
And once again, I would like to point out here, when when the slide was there that 10,000 years, the point here is some of us, not all of us. It is our story. It is not the only story. It may be the most dominant, the most brutal, the most powerful story right now, but this is not the only story. This is not a human story. This is the story of a human culture, not humans per se. Don't mistake this about human species. I always like to distinguish between these two things, and it's extremely important. This is not about human species, this is about a particular human culture, that's all.
And the opening sentence of this story is, "This is my piece of land." With this, the biggest shift in the history of Earth happens. We do not belong to the land belongs to us. We do not belong to Earth belongs to us. And with this begins a race to exploit. Whoever exploits the most becomes the most powerful. The rest will have to be subservient. With this, we take our first step to crush egalitarian societies and build hierarchical ones. With this, we take our first step to crush whatever is tender, delicate, and beautiful. From here begins our annihilation of the wild and free. From here on we reject. Whatever is alive cannot be owned.
$500, $600.
From here on, we believe whatever is owned cannot be alive. With this, we step into the mass culture of endless raping.
Human trafficking is on the rise.
Anyone with information on the missing girl is being urged to contact Crime Stoppers.
Another girl has gone missing.
Today, nearly 20,000 women have been sold so far into Greece's alarmingly booming sex trade industry.
It astounds me that not only does human trafficking exist on the earth today, but that there are actually more slaves than there've ever been before in the history of humanity. There are actually more slaves than there've ever been before in the history of humanity.
From here unfolds our story of decay and destruction, of captivity, torture, and perversion. From here begins the declaration of war with Earth and all her other children.
And there's a forest out there. So what do you have to do? Right from the very first step, we are stepping into all the crises, all the issues you just listed.
The Amazon rainforest is reaching a point of no return if deforestation exceeds 20% of its original area. Researchers have looked into how much deforestation would be required to cause the hydrological cycle to degrade to the point of being unable to support rainforest ecosystems.
Se o clima mudar, tanto por questão de desmatamento.
If the climate changes by deforestation or global warming, there's a risk that more than 50% of the Amazon forest becomes a degraded savanna.
Se tornar uma savana degradada.
The team concludes that deforestation has reached about 17% of its vegetation in the last 50 years, and just 3% extra would amount to a climatic abyss.
Yeah, this brings us to another issue. Oh, we thought deforestation meant taking down the trees only. But forest is much more than trees actually. Much more than that. So when we step into this, the next question comes this, evidently, what to do about the animals inside. And here we give two choices to all the animals that were there. And the choices are this: for those animals that can be domesticated, they will be enslaved. And those animals who insist, they say, no, I'm not going to give up my wilderness, my wildness, come what may. We say, okay, we'll have to get done with you. Because this land is fenced now, and this is my piece of property, and I'm going to grow my food here. You have no business here. Either get enslaved, or I'm going to get done with you. So all over the planet, this culture has offered only two choices to the animals: either become a utility to us, be useful to us in various ways, get domesticated, or get lost. We can't help it. And this is the two choices we give to everybody, actually.
But this amateur video of an orangutan named Pony shows how appalling, even sickening, the treatment can still be.
Here in central Kalimantan, lots of small villages have only prostitution and karaoke joints. And she was kept there in a room, tied around her ankle up against a wall, lying stomach down on a mattress, available for customers in the evening. We tried for over a year to take her, and every single time we approached the people, we were threatened with both with guns and also with machetes with poison on them. We continued to bring in more and more and more police officers, and in the end, when we finally got her, we had 36 military police officers with machine guns with us in order to get her.
trees are cleared, animals are taken care of. Okay, whatever we wanted to do with them, we have gone ahead. And what should be the next step now? Trees are not there, animals taken care of. What should be the next step?
At this precise point, you hear a voice again. You're beginning destruction from the very base, the very foundation of all life. Soil and life within the soil. From here you'll go on destroying life, layer by layer. From simple forms of life to the complex ones, sparing no one. Reaching your own self. From here begins your slippery slope. From here begins the end of your own story.
We change that landscape, okay, and from that landscape we make this landscape because we need to exploit the soil now. And when we start exploiting the soil, what does it entail once again? The first was, okay, one layer of trees gone, and the layer of all the animals that were on the surface of the land. We have to let go of them, okay, bye-bye. Now that it's the turn of the ones that are below the ground. So we are eliminating life layer by layer. And this layer that is below the ground, incidentally, is the one that helps, assists in growing food. So just have a look at them. Each one of them has a purpose here. So the animal life below the ground, we don't want. Let's get done with this. You got to kill all of them. And eventually, from here, we have to reach here. And there is absolutely no way you can escape this. Because this is the logical conclusion, the logical consequence of the process we started. Eliminating life gradually, and eventually the soil has to go dead. And then we move on to the next piece of the land to do the same process. So this is inevitable. You cannot escape this reality because this is part of the process. And therefore, we reach a point where the world is left with the current agricultural practices, we are left with 60 years of topsoil. Despite all our achievements, we owe our existence to a 6-inch layer of topsoil and the fact that it rains. Okay, plants need water. So what do we do now? Get water from underground. We are a little back in time yet, when things are just starting. Sorry, rivers. Yes, exactly. So we need to enslave the rivers now and bring water forcibly, because we have a responsibility to feed large populations. So large tracts of land are cultivated, and we need to bring water from the rivers. And the river is, let's say, about 100 miles away. So who's going to bring the water from there and how? Canals. Okay, good enough. We are smart people. We thought about it. We can dig canals. Next problem, who's going to dig canals? No, not yet. We don't have machines. It's about, the timeline is about 4,000 years ago. About 4,000, 4,500 years ago, we started cultivating. And at that point, we don't have machines at all. Animals, yeah, animals, but animals cannot dig, you see. Definitely, but yeah, not that scale. It's a human job. Slaves. That's the whole point. So we need slaves now for this job. What can we do about it? And our next question. Pardon? Get to war. Yeah. No choice. You see, what can we do about it? This is the process we have stepped into. Okay, we want this. Now we need slaves, and we want slaves. And and then we have to go to war. We have to wage wars now, and when we wage war, it's a double benefit. We get the territory, okay, and we get the slaves. And slaves, again, for two purposes: to draft in the war and to dig canals. Okay, we sift through the better able-bodied. Okay, go there, this. Okay, we sift through them. So we draft in the war and we put them to use here to grow our food. Okay, in various processes of growing our food. And whosoever is left behind in the territory we have attacked, okay, we tell them to cultivate the land, and since now we are growing annuals, forcibly we are making them grow. After a year, I can go there and collect tax there. Because I know 20 acres of land, these many boris of kanak, okay? So this is my tax, keep it here, whosoever is left behind. So see, so many advantages of war, and people cry, no war, no war. When the ecosystem is intact, when you do not need to forcibly bring water by breaking the backs of the rivers, in this system, the intact system, water comes from rain. Rain basically falls for trees, not for humans. No matter how much you populate by humans, rain is not going to fall for you. In the ecosystem, rain falls for trees. So when you take down trees, there's not going to be the rain, it's going to be scanty, erratic, unpredictable. And your plants, since they are sensitive now, okay, they're not the hardy ones in the forest, they need water at exact times. I have planted today, I'll have to water them. In an intact system, there is the forest floor which holds water, which holds moisture, and even if it doesn't for a long time, the plants are not going to die. But in this system, I need water at exact times. So I'll have to have those canals through the very system of slaves and everything.
The forest cover having been destroyed, with nothing to temperate it, the rain lashes straight on the soil, denuded and bared, and erodes it. With the layer of leaf litter and other organic matter, which acts like a sponge, stripped off from the surface, water does not get any chance to seep in and recharge the aquifers. And with our sprawling human colonies, we of course plaster the earth with asphalt and concrete, not allowing a drop of water to seep in. Rivers shrink. Aquifers dry up. Bread baskets turn into deserts. And as a bonus,
Interesting, isn't it? Water scarcity, water problem. Now 70% of the water goes into growing food only for humans. Now if you really think about it, things are not too complicated. Pretty simple, straightforward. Plants need water, undeniable fact. Water comes from the rains. All the water on earth comes from precipitation, whether it's rivers or aquifers. Now you start depleting your aquifers, you start exhausting your rivers, they can be. Eventually you'll have to depend on rains, and undeniable once again.
Earth is a water planet. The sun heats things up and water vapor evaporates into the atmosphere from Earth's land and oceans. Circulated by winds, this moisture flows around the world. Rainfall completes the water cycle and shows where the heat ends up. Most climate models assume that atmospheric moisture production and transport mainly responds to ocean temperatures and global wind circulation patterns, and less in a predictable way to land surfaces. But Earth is also the green planet. Seen from space, rainforests feel daily pulses of moisture into the Earth's atmosphere as they transpire during the day. These pulses of moisture, followed by rain, are clearly visible on this radar animated map of rainfall created by NASA. This water vapor either falls back locally or becomes transported by winds across large distances, bringing rainwater in downwind, often distant locations, even in another country. On this animation, the atmospheric moisture created over the Brazilian Amazon is transported to Argentina and into the Atlantic Ocean. So forests in one country can generate rainfall in another. Getting the global picture and being able to track rainfall from one place to another across the planet teaches us how forests influence the water cycle, how they help replenish our reservoirs. The biotic pump theory provides a novel scientific basis for the huge streams of water vapor in the sky. According to the theory, forests are active low-pressure regions. They suck in moisture from the ocean for long distances into the interior of continents and sustain rainfall far within. Reliable rainfall in the interior of continents such as Africa and South America may therefore be dependent on maintaining relatively intact and continuous forest cover all the way from the coast.
Somebody is getting excited and saying, oh, you're growing food. Okay. Could you also let us join in? Can we offer you some help?
Burrowers burrow the land and keep it aerated and soft, and water gets a chance to seep into the soil. We mimic the action and plow the land. Herbivores poop and urinate and fertilize the land. We mimic the action and haul manure from outside. Deer nibble at trees and shrubs, and trees and shrubs bear more fruit. We mimic the action and prune trees and shrubs. Bees and wasps and butterflies pollinate. Birds peck at pests, scatter the seeds, and fertilize with droppings. Frogs control pests. Snakes control frogs. There are hundreds of thousands of interactions and exchanges happening between billions of forms of life. We mimic a handful of them per our intelligence and capacity. instrumental in destroying all of them.
We want food to be grown here on earth exclusively for us. And we want to teach everybody a lesson who doesn't agree with us, okay? And earth in any case is stupid. So, just one example of sparrow, I usually cite this example, and this is the gentleman here, okay? Can anybody recognize? So, about this sparrow, common sparrow, okay? Chairman Mao figured out, very straightforward, okay, that sparrows peck at grains, and the data was, okay, they peck at grains and they steal these many pounds of grains. So if we eliminate all the sparrows, we'll be saving grains. Simple, plain logic. Sparrows steal grains, let's eliminate sparrows. So he issued a decree that throughout the China, start killing sparrows. So the whole of China got down to killing sparrows, and there was a reward on every sparrow's head. You kill 50 sparrows, 100 sparrows, brink, and you'll get this much money. So they got down to killing sparrows, beating drums, shooting, everything. They were successful. They killed almost all sparrows in China. And there is a little interesting fact about it, because they would beat drums, keep on beating drums. They would not let the sparrows sit, okay? So sparrows took refuge in an embassy, actually. Yeah. So one embassy said, okay, we let them in. Okay, but anyway. So they killed all the sparrows, But eventually, then what could be the consequence of killing sparrows? Sorry? Insects, yes. Okay. It's amazing how can somebody supposed to be so intelligent. They eat insects, of course. They're like producing insects. Exactly. Okay. So the locust population, particularly locust, of course, all insects had a good time. There's no sparrow there. Okay. But locust populations exploded, and practically they ate away everything in China. So what you get is a huge famine. Some 40 to 70 million people die, to the extent that cannibalism became popular there. The situation got that bad. And more interesting, eventually, after about 2-3 years, when it was getting worse and worse and worse, China had to import sparrows from Russia. So the point is this only, okay? The logic we are seeing is, since this thing, this animal, that animal, this is my piece of land and that animal is trying to steal my food and therefore that animal needs to be killed, is the psychology going with it. Most of us are genuinely concerned about the state of farmers, okay? Because once again, we owe our life to these people who grow food for us. And you see innumerable protests by the farmers, okay? You see even so many peasant revolutions, but in spite of that, the state of affairs vis-a-vis farmers is quite pathetic. That pathetic that they have to commit suicides. But we do want to help them. Okay, there are people genuinely working to help them, and this is just an effort to understand, okay, what actually is happening and why the state of affairs vis-a-vis farmers, and why things are like that. Now, to discuss that, I'll have to step into the principle of hierarchy. So the society we have is a hierarchical one. It's not an egalitarian one. We are not equals, right? And the system, there's a principle operating behind it in this hierarchy. So what could be that operating principle keeping some people here, keeping most of the people here? Look at this. Those who live closest to earth and do killing with their bare hands. All of us are doing killing, being within the system. And those who hate the earth the most rise to the top. They live in the penthouses, okay? Distance gives you control. You can manipulate, you can dominate, control, and manipulate by distance. It makes you less empathetic. So the way you grow from the earth, the more powerful you become, because now you can control. You can strategize. And therefore, in this system, the farmer who sprays poisons with his bare hands remains at the bottom, and the one who manufactures, sitting in his office, rises to the top. Just because he's more effective killing on a mass scale, on a much bigger scale than the farmer. A farmer with bare hands can spray 2 acres, 20 acres. The one who manufactures can spray in millions of acres. So he rises to the top because he's more effective at killing. He's got more skills at it. A foot soldier will remain at the bottom because he's doing killing with his bare hands. A general will rise to the top because he's learned the skills to kill at a bigger scale. He's more effective at killing than a foot soldier. So street butcher remains at the bottom. Rancher can become even the President of the United States. Miners, factory workers remain at the bottom. Corporations rise at the top. Because the miner is doing with the bare hands, right in the mines, coal mines down there. So whosoever is capable of doing most damage rises to the top. The oil industry, the arms industry, the plastic industry, the fashion industry, not to talk about the IT industry. So this remains the principle. Therefore, farmers will always remain at the bottom because it's a structural compulsion of the system. You cannot help it. You cannot move a thing from there here to there. Slaves would remain at the bottom. King, ruling class, corporations will rise to the top. Now farmer slaves remain at the bottom because a little more in detail about farmer slaves. These tasks cannot be done with white collars, okay? And you will not pay slaves much because, one, they will not be slaves otherwise. And we need to have the base of the pyramid since it's a hierarchical system. And you need to feed artificially created, fed on cheap, fake foods, large populations of cultivated, domesticated humans because that happens to be your labor force employed at the destruction of the natural world. This is how the system works. Well, of course, that's a reality. Okay, we are not free beings. It's a domesticated. Pardon me?
Unless the lower portion starts getting educated.
Yeah.
The sad thing is the moment they're educated, they want to become the.
I'll come to it. I'm coming to this. Exactly that is how it is. Okay, exactly like that. So this is how it is. Farmer slaves remain at the bottom. Okay. And working class heroes, that is you and us, okay, they figure out here, and then finally the ruling class climbs to the top. Now, the slaves here, farmer slaves here, about 22 to 60%, depending on how developed the country is dispensable. We replace them with machine slaves. We do not want them, okay, because now we are more advanced, industrialized society, industrialization of the food system, agriculture. So that slave class of the farmer, physical, human, biological slaves can be replaced with machine slaves with the help of petroleum. And that's how we go on replacing them with machines, and that's how eventually we reach the population of 1 to 2% in developed countries, okay, US, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, okay. So this is what we reach, and we give two options to the farmer slaves, as you pointed out. Either they can get qualified, get more skills, more effective at killing, okay, and rise above. They can participate in the education system, in the school system, where we teach how to kill more effectively, more sophisticatedly, so that nobody gets to know. You get a very nice persona for everybody. We're nice people, but this is what we teach there. We need that force here. So these people can climb up, okay? They're most welcome to do that. And as they keep on climbing up, we go on replacing them with machine slaves. And eventually the next step is from the machines, now we want to replace all of these, okay, with artificial intelligent people called robots, okay. So all the tasks that can be automated, and all the tasks can be automated because work basically is a set of repetitive movements, okay. So we can break down into smaller segments, make it, assign that repetitive job to machines and then artificially intelligent robots. So all this is also dispensable probably in the near future, okay. Yeah, for the farmers, the choice is, okay, either it's a layoff, either learn new skills or commit suicide. It's as simple as that. This is how the system is. So there is something called carrying capacity of a land base, okay. Now, any given land base has a certain carrying capacity, and it can only support a certain number of living beings, okay. Let's say X number of human beings plus A, B, C, D for other forms of life, for other living beings. Now here, what we are doing and trying to achieve actually, So here the process is of eliminating A, B, C, D, all other forms of life, and feeding X number of human beings, exclusively cultivated human beings, to be more specific. And then we want to feed X square, X to the power 4, X to the power 8, so on. And we want to go on feeding this set of cultivated human beings indefinitely. So this is the process. And if you want to achieve this, number one, you'll have to continuously go on deforesting the surface of the earth. This is the objective, so you'll have to go on doing it. And eventually you'll reach a point where you will be cultivating almost half of Earth. About 40% of Earth, of the surface of Earth, is being cultivated right now to grow food only for humans, nobody else, and the slave animals, of course. And the rest of the surface on Earth, okay, you can see the green ones are where we grow plants for us, slave plants, and the brown parts are where we grow animals for us. That's the animal agriculture. And the rest, the gray parts, whatever is left, is actually not farmable. Whatever was farmable, we are already farming here. The gray parts are too hot, too cold, too steep, too rocky, or whatever. We cannot farm there. Whatever on Earth was farmable, we are already doing it. This is the state, this is the status right now. We are kind of now out of Newfoundland. We do not have any more land to farm. The second point is, you'll have to constantly go on degrading your own land base by extensive exploitation and others' land bases by extensive exploitation and importing of resources. So we'll have to constantly go on degrading our land bases as well as our food. And both the processes obviously go hand in hand. Degradation of the land base as well as of the food. Okay? Now this is the objective, which is pretty insane, but still.
¿Qué pasó? ¿Qué va? ¿Qué hasta dónde? ¿Qué hasta dónde?
When they were displaced, they went into cities. They started to rebel against the government. The government attacked them. They armed themselves. The international world armed the rebels. Today we have an ISIS. It began with lack of water.
Thus, simultaneously, you'll have to constantly go on degrading your food too. So from the food getting all the nutrients naturally for the love of it, from the rain, soil, air and sun, plus a synergy of all the plants and animals, first you'll have to haul everything from outside, the water and the manure. Then you'll have to encage the plants completely, eliminate all contact with the natural world, and do everything for the plant yourself. You'll have to constantly consume poisons in the name of food. Plus, you'll have to tinker with plants to increase their yield. So now from an even degraded land base, an acre that was giving you 26 bushels has to give you 176. Every single farmer, every single agri-scientist, every single agri-company in the world is working for one single goal: increase the yield. Every single scientist, every single company in the world is working for one single goal: profit. Squeeze, milk everything to its last ounce. Then you have to imitate and mutilate the genes to make it even more toxic and grotesque. So not only that the environment, the whole planet keeps on getting more and more toxic. The food too keeps on getting more and more toxic and abnormal. And so do you.
You want to be healthy, then we'll have to think about what are the sources of your physical nourishment. Sources of food? Yeah. Okay, pretty simple. Your physical nourishment comes from this, okay? Food, air, water, and sunlight. And we'll have to look into this then, okay? And now, the point is, you can only be as healthy as the air, water, and food you consume. You can only be as healthy as the nourishment you receive. Okay. Now let's look at the food. My question is, do you go to the forest to water the plants? Nope. To do gordy hoeing? Nope. Plowing? Nope. Chemicals? Nope. No Roundup there either, spray anything. No, nothing of the sort. Now, how come they don't need any of these and your plants do? Yeah, you hit the nail, okay? Which will bring me to the next one. Exactly this point, okay? I am asking how come they're able to not only thrive and be healthy, but feed the whole of the creation, and cultivated man is unable to feed even his own species. And she hits the nail because those plants are stronger. They don't need our support. They can live, thrive, and be healthy without our support. And if that is the case, then that is my first point. Now, let's find out, okay, what is happening there in their world and what is happening in our world. A few goings and coming backs, okay, into that system and this system. So, physical nourishment of plants comes from sunlight, water, air, and the soil. That's about it, okay? So when we are looking at the soil, we are investigating. The question comes, is soil alive or dead? Alive, yeah. And what makes it alive? Sorry? Microorganisms.
Soil requires the presence of the living organisms in your soil. You must have bacteria, fungi, protozoa, nematodes, microarthropods, mycorrhizal fungi, all those cute little creepy crawlies in the soil. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to grow those plants.
living beings make things alive, okay? So living beings make soil alive. And in this case, we can say microorganisms, which is just the basis, okay? It's just not the microorganisms. We are building from the microorganisms, and then other forms of life to macro. Everything in that cycle is making the soil alive, okay? So what does the life and health of soil depend on? Let's see. Diverse forms of life, micro and macro, living on that particular land base. That will keep the soil alive and healthy. Now, diverse forms of plants uptake and process different minerals through microorganisms. There's an exchange happening here. It's a collective effort, okay? There's a collaborative effort going on there. In the whole of the nature, you'll find that. And there's an exchange, okay? The plants are feeding the microorganisms through sugars, and in return, whatever we call return or out of their joy of life, those microorganisms are converting those minerals and feeding the plants. If the soil is healthy, then the plants and animals are healthy. And when healthy plants and animals fall back, the soil becomes healthy, okay? And there's no other shortcut about it. They get everything from the soil, the nature, the cosmos, all the energies. They grow, mature, and they go back and replenish and give all those energies back to the soil. If life is abundant, rich and diverse in a land base, microorganisms will be abundant and rich and diverse. It's not just a question of one or two bacteria which PAU keeps on supplying to the farmers, okay? This is for your root growth, this is for this or that, okay? Only and only if they are diverse, okay, the soil can be alive and healthy. Conversely, if the land base is poor, barren, sterile, and damaged, soil will be proportionately alive or dead. Now, something pretty significant here. Every plant is a specific set of nutrients. Okay, so I would like to elaborate a little bit this, okay? So every plant is a set of particular nutrients, okay? And comes up at a certain point, at a certain place, because it's needed there. To our eyes, it's just a weed, because from our selfish interests, mostly commercial market interests, that plant is not really profitable. To us, it's a weed, but when you shift the perspective from here to the land base, from the perspective of the land base, that plant is extremely important. It's coming up for a purpose, for an objective. A few examples, very simple, okay? If the soil is loose, you'll get grasses which will be able to hold the soil. If the soil lacks nutrition, the plants will come which will have a deeper taproot to bring the nutrients up there. If a forest is burnt down, a particular set of plants, weeds in our eyes, will come up that will replenish what has been lost in the process. It's not as simple as that, okay, this is not a tomato, this is not a lettuce, therefore it's not good for me, it's of no use. No. They're coming for a certain purpose, And when they go back to land, for example, in the case of the forest fire, that's the only chance for that soil to replenish itself. And it's not a case of some nutrients, okay, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium you put and you get your tomatoes from it. You cannot really even fathom what nutrients, micronutrients, what we call, are needed by living beings. And then you cannot really say, okay, I can pop some supplements and I can be healthy. It's not a possibility. So, soil gives life to plants and animals, correct? And plants and animals give life to soil. This is simple, okay? Now, take away all the plants and animals from a land base. This is scenario 1. Something like this. The question comes this: is the soil alive or dead? It's dead. Now, which means there's no life of its own in the land base except superimposed, planted human life of a certain culture. The land base is dead one on its own, and the human life is supported by importing its feed, that is through a kind of lifeline from outside. This is our reality. Whatever land bases we are living in are scenario 1. Let's look at scenario 2. What if you allow a limited number of plants and animals on the land base, additionally douse it with some chemicals, something like this? So is it alive or dead here? Yeah. It's a partially alive, gradually dying out land base, including everyone in and on it. And even more importantly, these are the only 2 scenarios we are allowing on the planet. As we just saw, half of the earth is used for the scenario 2 and the rest is for scenario 1. This is what our objective. And if that is objective,
you are citizens of dead zones. As far as life is concerned. Just one species breeds and multiplies. At the cost of every other species on the planet. Eventually collapsing, taken unawares, having no base of life to support it. Ecosystems are resilient. Therefore, populations don't read the signs of imminent collapse. The signs are everywhere. Stamped on every inch of your world. But populations choose to be blindsided to the signs. And short-sighted to the road ahead. Or the absence of it. Stupefied by their addictives.
Prison and palace and reverberation of thunder of spring over distant mountains. He who was living is now dead. We who were living are now dying with a little patience. Here is no water but only rock. Rock and no water and the sandy road. The road winding above among the mountains, which are mountains of rock without water. If there were water, we should stop and drink.
Citizens of dead zones. Creating and expanding dead zones. All over the planet body. As well as their own physical, mental, and spiritual bodies.
Now let's look at the air. So is air alive or dead? Alive once again. And what makes it alive? Pardon me? Cleaner. Yeah, of course. Cleaner air is alive. And the question is a little difficult one, that what makes it alive? Same question. Is water alive or dead? Alive. Okay, what makes it alive? Minerals are part of the life-giving thing, but once again, even water has its microbiome. Okay. So what happens is when the rain falls, okay, it's the first retreats and the soil invertebrates. There's so many different forms of life.
Rain falls on and for the forest. Meets and greets life and forms its own microbiome. From the forest floor, which acts like a sponge thanks to organic matter, clear water trickles down and forms streams. And then rivers, besides charging aquifers. Forms whirls, currents, and vortexes. Charged and enriched with minerals, is playful and happy and alive.
As I'm sure you're all aware, the health of the ocean is caught in a cycle of serious decline. Without a healthy and sustainable ocean, humanity's place on this planet will be in jeopardy.
They got this stuff so toxic that a Dixie cup will kill everybody in a restaurant for an hour, every hour, for 1 billion years.
This is probably the most dangerous stuff on the planet ever.
There's 8 million liters a day pouring into that ocean. 8 million liters a day. 17,000 containers of radioactive waste. It's just part of the catalogue of waste dumped at the sea by the Soviets that we know about. 47,500 barrels containing plutonium, cesium, strontium, the most toxic stuff on the planet. That's 2.5 million gallons or 18 million Dixie cups.
I know this sounds incredible to people, but there are 40 miles of unlined trenches at Hanford. We stretch them end to end, into which our federal government, your government, was dumping radioactive waste from nuclear weapons production and its own reactors, even though it seeps right out of those trenches, and that stuff is all moving through the soil.
The Italian mafia has been using the sea as a convenient location to dump over 40 ships that were loaded with toxic radioactive waste into the Mediterranean waters since 1994.
Dumped out of the high-level nuclear waste tanks in the 1950s and 1960s, billions of gallons of liquids.
Over 600 barrels of toxic and nuclear waste had washed up on the Somalian coastline.
So this brings us to the question, what are we made of? Sorry. Yeah. And where do these 5 elements come from? The planet. But generally, when you ask somebody, normally almost everybody has this image in mind. Somebody sitting in heaven with these 5 boxes, churning out all the human beings. It's not so. You're made right here of the same elements what we just saw. You want to be healthy. Okay, you're composed of living microbes of this air, this water, and this soil. And 90% of this body that you believe to be your own body is actually composed of 90% of it is microbial cells. That's not you. The human cells are just 10%. You're carrying 90% of those microbes in your guts and here and there. You take this to be you, but 90% is somebody else. Cells-wise and genes-wise, 99%. So you're about 10% human, 90% somebody else. 1% human, 99% somebody else. And the question remains, where are they coming from?
existing life in the environment is abundant and rich, healthy and robust. The body is formed out of it, stand a chance to be healthy and robust. If the land you're formed from is sick, if the air is sick, water is sick, the whole environment is sick, how can healthy bodies be formed from these?
lié aux éléments. Tu te balances sans mouvement. Tu te balances dans l'esprit.
When the raw material is cheap, how do you expect the product to turn out good? If the food you consume is cheap and poisonous, if the 5 elements you're made of are sick and degraded, if your very cells are aggregates from your urban scums in toxic dumps, what makes you think your spouse can detox you? If your whole habitat is damaged, disfigured, and ruined, if the whole ecosystem is collapsed, out of balance, and wrecked, what makes you think you can be balanced and healthy? If your very way of living is a disease on earth, what makes you think your doctors and your yoga gurus, very much not only a part of the very same way of life, but on top of it profiteering from it, can import health from somewhere else and gift it to you? For how long do you think your chia seeds or tulsi or turmeric, your diets and fads can support human life on earth? In spite of all the evidence, contrary to even the common sense, what makes you think you can continue living the same way and still be healthy? What makes you think you can continue walking the same path and still make it?
And dealing with the question of world hunger, I would like to know your views on it.
Wrong consumption habits, maybe what we are demanding is not really the body needs.
Okay, so it's the over-consuming type of thing. Okay. Anybody else?
And the wastage of food.
Waste. Oh yeah.
Here of a starving polar bear on a piece of ice. Yeah. One of my takeaways from the last time we did one of these sessions is that world hunger is normally identified with human hunger. This is my point. We covered that last, but that was one of my main takeaways.
So my fundamental question is here simply this. When I ask anybody, any amount of audience, when I ask this question, what do you think about world hunger? Every single person starts talking about humans. The world does not mean humans, for heaven's sake. And humans cannot live alone. It's an impossibility. So the moment we say world hunger, our focus is just humans, nobody else, and whereas the stark reality is every other form is starved to death or the lives are extinguished by this human culture simply because of this perspective. And this is our objective actually. This is what we are trying to achieve, all of us collectively. We want to feed infinite number of human beings of a particular culture once again, not all human beings. human populations are stable for about 2.5 million years, okay? So from here, okay, the graph is just one straight line. It's almost less than 1 million. And somewhere here, the grains come into picture, here. And we start moving. The extensive agriculture, the plow, the cultivation comes somewhere here. And we start rising, okay? And that point somewhere, you see industrial agriculture, and just see after that the graph. So more than 2.5 million years, it's stable. Grains come into picture here. We keep on rising the numbers. And when machines come into picture, it becomes vertical. Deforestation and population go hand in hand. You go on multiplying and you go on deforesting. Same is true with extinctions. We go on multiplying ourselves and we go on extinguishing every other form of life. Took 200,000 years for us to reach 1 billion and just 200 years to 7 billion. So that is the pace of conversion of planet life into a human mass right now, assisted by these exploitative technologies. This is what we are actually doing right now. So the same graph, same data. So we increased the percentage from 7 to 40 after Industrial Revolution. Before 1750, it was just 7% of Earth's surface that we were farming. And now it's 40% just in 300 years, covering the whole surface that is farming. So modern humans, timeline is 200,000 years. The story I narrated which began about 10,000 years ago, is just a cultural story. It has nothing to do with human evolution. We are exactly the same genetically, culturally polar opposite. And the second evidence is the culturally different people, for example, the people inhabiting forests, are still there, whatever little we have left of them. Okay? So simultaneously, the people are existing. Some are agricultural people, some are forest people, but there is no difference in evolution of human beings. So this was very significant, because otherwise people take this that, okay, it was a chronological process in the process of evolution that we became this. No, nothing like that. We just diverged culturally, not genetically. And it was a choice, it is still a choice. Now we step into the 1st century AD, okay? That was from the beginning to 10,000 years. Now from 1st century onwards till now, now see. Now each dot will represent 1 million people, okay? The dots, yellow dots you're seeing will represent 1 million people, and we're beginning from 1st century now. So that's how it is. You won't see a single green space in India or China. Now, as you could see, okay, after the industrial and then the computers and everything when come into picture, it just booms. But more fundamentally, my question is, after all these empires, fundamentally, what are they doing? What were they doing actually? What is their basic function? Creation of wealth, yes, how? Sorry, somebody else mentioned. Eat. Reproduce, yeah, exactly. That is it. You said something.
Creation of wealth.
Yeah.
We need to define wealth. It's the creation of material wealth.
Yeah.
At the expense of ecological wealth.
Yes, exactly. So all they are doing is, somebody said exploitation, okay, and you said wealth, okay. All they are doing is attacking other people, other territories, exploiting, taking away all the resources, looting, plundering, and converting into that wealth that Dilbir is mentioning. And how do they do is, again, the two pillars, the slaves and the military. That's all they have been doing, and increasing their empires, their populations to be put to use to further exploit. And that is the process, and see how quick, how fast the process is. That's all they are doing, okay, with the help of two pillars, slavery and military, which exist even today, without which everything falls like a house of cards. But there's a third element here, very important. Right in the beginning, what is the Silk Road doing here? Right in the beginning. Yeah, the trading, and which becomes your third pillar of this society, of this civilization. Right in the beginning you need, because you have looted, you have plundered the earth. Now you need to transact, you need to trade all those things. So all that we have been doing right from this point is working and shopping. Working to exploit, and then you need to shop. And you have to keep people miserable. If somebody is happy, he would give a damn to all that nonsense and step into all that. So you got to keep them miserable, unhappy, lonely. 61 or probably 70% of the population in the Western world is lonely right now, today. Because you have to make them buy. And this process once again is getting so accelerated. The whole onslaught through all this IT world, through Facebook, through whatever, the Google, everybody is targeting every single person for one single goal, to make them consume more and more and more and more. So every single person is working more and more, more and more, more and more hours, and shopping more and more, more and more, more and more. So these are just two processes right from the beginning, and eventually see where we reach. And they say exponential growth is an understatement when we talk about human population explosion. And to simplify, Professor Albert gave this analogy. So he says, imagine bacteria growing steadily in a bottle, and they double every minute. The doubling time is 1 minute. Finite environment of the bottle, okay, just like Earth. And at 11 a.m., we introduce one bacteria here in the bottle, and it multiplies from 1 to 2, 2 to 4, 4 to 8, 8 to 16, and so on. At 12, the bottle is full in 1 hour. Question is, at what time was the bottle half full?
11:59.
Perfect. You see, 11:59. Just one generation, just 1 minute. Half of it is empty, and then it's full. At what point, if you were an average bacteria, just like human being here, at what point would you realize there was a problem? 11:59, just one generation back, 50% is empty. 2 generations back, 1/4 is empty. Just 5 generations back, 97% of it is empty. Who would think there's a problem? In 1 generation, even when it's just half of it is empty, just in 1 generation, it's full and there's no more food, and the bacteria have collapsed. Now, we have intelligent people on this planet. We have big politicians, we have big scientists. They're working on this. Am I right? And some of them have a solution. What solution they have? Like Elon Musk and all those people?
Find some another planet.
Find another planet. Perfect. Such a brilliant solution. There's nothing to worry. Right? They are going to find life on Mars. They have already found this or that. Such a wonderful thing. They're working on it. But I am saying not just one, you found 3 more planets. I mean, you're so fortunate. You were asking for 1, but you got 3 more. Brand new. New Earths. All resources out there. All the water, all the petroleum, all the farming land, just for you. Now look at it. 11:59, half full. 12, it's full. Your own planet. Amazing, isn't it? Brilliant minds working on this solution. Now, concluding words is this, okay? I'm summing up my thesis, what I want to say here, okay? What does the form of life depend on? Right at the bottom, at the base. Soil, absolutely. Soil life depends on a synergy of diverse forms of life, micro and macro, small and big, not just cultivated humans and their slaves. And planet life depends on synergy of diverse forms of life, micro and macro, small and big. That's the only way for planet to survive. Now, soil cannot be saved out of a natural forest. With the first blow of the axe and the first furrow of the plow, it's a time bomb. You can go on extending it for some period, but you cannot stop the time bomb. Now, cultivation erodes and exterminates soil and soil life. Civilization erodes and exterminates every other form of life except the cultivated human and their slave plants and slave animals. As you grow, you keep on eliminating, exterminating all other forms of life.
2014, researchers at the World Wildlife Fund released a report saying that between 1970 and 2010, in just 40 years, the population of wild vertebrates decreased by 52%. Then 2 years later, they released the second report saying that between 1970 and 2012, the population of wild vertebrates decreased by 58%. So from these 2 data points, you can perform a simple math calculation to tell you that at the current rate of decline, 100% of wild vertebrates will be gone by 2026. This is year 0, the year when all wild animals are gone.
Together, they erode planet life.
Now this story is coming to an end, literally and figuratively. But do we really stand a chance walking the same path? Speak softly, love. Love is a form of food, and food is a form of love. Can one ever get nourished without love? Can one ever get loved back by raping? Can we really save just ourselves while exterminating everyone else, wiping them off from the face of the earth? Can we really win this war with Earth and her other children? we actually win and she loses? What if we actually win and she loses?
This is the world we wanted. This is the world we got. This is the world we wanted. This is the world we got. This is the world as soon as we know it. Dark and cold and desolate. A wasteland of destruction, as we have always wanted it. We spent all our lives and every day just making it happen. We paved the road to this demise, but I wanna hold your hand to the very end. I don't care if the world comes crashing down. We know it's inevitable. It's just the way it has to be. This is the world as soon as we know it. Dark and cold and desolate. A wasteland of destruction, as we have always wanted it. is the world we got. This is the world we wanted. This is the world we got. This is the world as soon as we know it. Dark and cold and desolate. A wasteland of destruction as we have always wanted it.
But awaken, soul smothered by mental illness, ego entertained by spring violence, so obviously flawed in our history books. What can we do? Yeah, I'm dysfunctional, baby, and you're dysfunctional, baby. We're all dysfunctional, baby. There's nothing